Right, so for once I'm not the only person who had all of their theories absolutely destroyed by a new episode releasing, as absolutely nobody predicted what Caine was going to do in the most recent Digital Circus episode. However, from the ashes the phoenix will rise again, so let's take a look at all of the possible endings for this show based on what we now know to be true, as well as some extra details I thought were interesting. But that's enough intro, let's just get into it.
Mismatched cash piano, I'll tear you to pieces!
The first avenue we will explore here is the one where Goose very closely follows the template of I have no mouth and I must scream, the source of inspiration for this show. Up until the point of writing this script, I had never actually read the story, so I will be reconciling that right now. Give me 10 minutes. Okay, so upon reflection, Digital Circus characters are playing on easy mode compared to the source material, but it does still provide us with a potential ending. For those who have not read the short story, the main difference between the artificial intelligence we know as Caine and the AI in I Have No Mouth and I Must Scream, AM, is their motives for interacting with the characters. Above all else, Caine is seeking validation. He wants to feel included as part of the group of humans and to be treated just like one of them. He idolizes humanity and wants him and the circus to be as inviting and hospitable to the humans as possible. This is why he makes adventures that can genuinely be seen as entertaining, at least on the surface. It's because he wants the cast members to enjoy themselves and feel at home. AM, on the other hand, is the complete opposite. Instead of being born out of the need for a game to entertain people, AM was constructed in parts all over the world to assist governments in World War III. If my interpretation of the story is correct, these AIs eventually link up with each other to create something that is basically total control over every resource on the planet. It immediately went about killing the entire population of Earth, save for these 5 individuals. These people have a wide range of different characteristics that could together be a stand-in for the entirety of humanity, and it fucking hates them. There's a fantastic line in the story itself that explains just how much this program is going to hate humans, and it's using these 5 as a way to extract ultimately meaningless revenge on them through the form of constant torture. The difference here is obviously the circumstances upon which the AI gains sentience. However, as we have seen quite remarkably over the last few years, artificial intelligence is able to change and adapt itself by receiving new inputs, something that could be catastrophic for our circus cast. Should interactions where the characters outright insult, belittle, or discourage Caine, such as this crash out from Jax or the therapy session with Zubul, become more frequent, Caine may start to shift his perception on humans from a group to be praised to one that must be punished. He may start to mess with their minds more, causing insanity like we can see with Kinga, abstraction in cases like Scratch, or just plain suffering like we see from Ted and I Have No Mouth and I Must Scream. None of the endings I'm going to suggest in this video will be particularly bright, but this one is probably the worst. However, there are a few details here that lead me to believe that Caine will not turn on our characters. The first is this post from Gooseworks where they give a one-word description of every episode. Our clues for episode 8 and episode 9 are "oh" and "what". The O here is clearly an indicator of realization, suggesting that how the circus actually works and if there is a way out will be revealed to us there. The what, however, suggests that we are slipping back into the unknown and will likely end on a note that is not very conclusive. Caine turning against the characters and deciding to torture them is a pretty conclusive ending, and thus would not elicit these descriptions. The other piece of evidence I have for this is Caine's own reactions to abstraction, of which we get 2 throughout the series. In Kaufmo's case in the pilot, he is relatively nonchalant about the whole thing, pulling a face before quickly depositing him in the cellar. In the case of Scratch though, we see genuine concern and fear in his body before he quickly removes himself from the situation. This demonstrates that Caine has no problems with the characters becoming damaged because of the circus environment, but if he is directly linked to the source of the suffering, it's a big issue for him. Therefore, he won't go out of his way to do intentionally harmful things and won't end up like I am. The next theory for what will happen is the thing that every optimistic watcher of this show wants to happen, but I don't necessarily think will turn out as well as is hoped. What if they actually do make it out? I was among those who thought there was actually no way out of this circus, which is why I subscribed to the last theory I'm going to share with you, but a single line of dialogue from Pomni has thrown a bit of a spanner in the works here.
The stupid sauce! The vegan thing! God knows what else!
Our names?
Why would their real names be important? Sure, it could just be a nice adjustment to be able to use them again, but if that were the only thing it did, Caine would have just not forced the forgetting of them. And yes, Caine is definitely controlling that ability. More likely though, is that there is some power that a person's real name holds within the circus. The most likely case for this being the ability to log off. Here is the perspective I'm taking with this. CNA, or whatever the real name of the company that built the circus is, actually intended for this to be an immersive experience that people could stay in for as long as they wanted to. But to achieve this full level of immersion, the headset used would need to be incredibly invasive, to the point where removing it without the player logging off would mean death or severe brain damage. That is why the characters are still stuck in there, because if anyone from the outside tries to pull them out, they'll just kill them anyway. Thus, to prevent this, they made the procedure to log off very simple. Just say your name and that you wish to leave, something that's much easier to remember than any other passcode. Caine, however, wanting the characters to stay in the circus constantly so that he could interact with them more and show them how amazing he is, modifies the brain of the person entering the circus so that they cannot remember their name and thus cannot leave. Meddling too much with their minds will cause insanity, abstraction, and that severe brain damage anyway, which he found out the hard way, but just a little modifier like this, or a temporary one, can work fine. The O in episode 8 then refers to them finding out their true names, or at least some of them do. Episode 9 will then be one last desperate attempt to distract Caine long enough to get out, in which I imagine they'd succeed. Once they leave though, what will be left of them and what will the company do with them? Probably very bad things if we take any part of what Abel says to be true. The final option for this series ending is my personal favourite and falls somewhere between the others in terms of how awful it is, and I also believe it's the one that's able to pull the most loose threads together. The idea is pretty simple. Nobody in the circus has a real life to go back to. Upon wearing the headset in the old building, the minds of the humans were each scanned and uploaded into the circus. The real people, then realizing that the headset didn't appear to do or play anything, took it back off and continued about their day, not realizing what they'd just subjected a copy of themselves to. This is not a new theory, but it still holds up for me even after all of these episodes. It explains the lack of needing to eat, drink, or sleep, allows for this project to continue on without ever having been shut down for the presumed decades it's been running by either the company itself or any government agency that realized what would have been going on in the other scenarios. Remember, the outside world in the Amazing Digital Circus is depicted as our real world. People don't just randomly disappear for years and years after having entered the exact same building without some sort of suspicion. Not to mention the costs this project would incur if they were sustaining real people. It also explains Kinga's bizarre reaction to being told that they were trying to leave.
Huh? Leave the circus? How would you... No, that doesn't make sense.
What really sells it for me though is Caine talking about his images of the outside world. Just take a listen to this.
Wish I had more info on the location so I could accurately recreate it. Too bad they cut me off, right?
The reason he stopped receiving communications so long ago is because the project was abandoned. The company went under and there is nobody supervising the circus anymore. That's why these fools were all able to put the headset on without knowing what was actually going to happen. There are no regulations protecting the lives of lines of code. Our O moment in episode 8 will likely be that realization. The realization that they can't leave, that they never could, and that they aren't even the real people they've had the memories of this entire time. That will be a crushing realization, and it will likely occur right at the end of the episode before the credits. Episode 9 will then be our final reactions to this information that will cause multiple abstractions and likely leave only a couple of characters around in the circus, just in time for a new sucker to pop into the world. But that's all I've got for today. Thank you all for watching, and have a good one.